Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning. Thank you for all of you for joining us. My name is Devi Saluling. I'm the manager of the Rainforest Journalism Fund. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this webinar, Protecting the Amazon Wildlife and Biodiversity, brought to you by the Cultural Center Rainforest Journalism Fund and the National Geographic Society. At RGF, we are supporting enhancing environmental reporting about the world's tropical rainforest. It is our primary mission. So we are very excited and pleased to co-host this event where we facilitated the connections and networking of scientists and journalists researching and reporting on critical issues in the Amazon. Today, we have a wonderful lineup of speakers who will present their latest work, researching and helping to preserve wildlife and connect to the Amazon basin. So today's program is going to be translated into Spanish. So speakers will speak both in English and Spanish as well. Audience is welcome to access the live translation. You can choose it by the interpretation icon on the Zoom bar on the bottom. We will hear from each of the four panelists and then have a brief question and answer session where you will be able to ask questions of all the presenters. So please hold all of your questions until the end. I will turn it now over to Dolly Maya for remarks about our collaborator on the event, National Geographic Society.
Thank you so much, Deti, and thank you so much for joining us today. As Deti mentioned, I am Dolly Maya. I am a Senior Manager of Communications with National Geographic Society, and I have the unique pleasure of working on the National Geographic and Rolex Perpetual Planet Amazon expedition. Launched last year in April, the National Geographic Society and Perpetual Planet Amazon expedition is a multi-year science and storytelling exploration of the Amazon, spanning the Amazon basin from the Andes to the Atlantic. Working in multiple countries and ecosystems, this initiative looks at the Amazon from the perspective of the river to better understand how it impacts the wildlife, plants, and the people who depend on it, while of course identifying solutions to protect its survival. In this webinar, you'll hear from National Geographic explorers Ruth Pillco, João Campos-Silva, and Fernando Trujillo, who are each leading component of the Perpetual Planet Amazon expedition. You'll also see some of the stunning visuals from National Geographic explorer, photojournalist, and Rainforest Journalism Fund grantee Florence Goupil, who, through her work, has captured the immense power of combining storytelling with science. I will now pass the microphone back to Deti for the panelist introduction and for our programming. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolly. Okay, now to get things started, we will start with our first presenter, Fernando Trujillo, who is studying river dolphins throughout the upper Amazon basin. You can see the bio of Fernando's on the chat, but we can get started. Please, Fernando.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm honored to be here today. Well, during the last 10 years, I think the world finally understood about the importance of the conservation of the Amazon. However, most of the focus of this conservation has been in the forest and deforestation, but not about the water. And that's the reason because the Perpetual Planet Amazon expedition is so important, because our main focus is the aquatic ecosystems. Next, please. Next. Can I? Yes. Well, one before. One before, please. What we are trying to do here is to protect the rivers and the wetlands, and we are using the river dolphins as ambassadors of the conservation of the aquatic ecosystems. These are very emblematic species, and they are very endangered. Next. But where we are working? Next. Basically, we are in the upper part of the river Amazon, in Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, and a small part of Brazil. We are focused in 2 Ramsar sites. For those that don't know what is a Ramsar site, is a very important wetland that is an international level. There is a world secretary in Ramsar in Switzerland, and we have here 2 large Ramsar sites that are focused on aquatic ecosystems. Next one, please. But why? Why we are trying to do something regarding aquatic ecosystems and dolphins? Next. Basically, we are having a lot of deforestation on the shore. We are losing hundreds of kilometers of forest along the rivers. We also have direct hunting of dolphins. During the last 10 years, they have been used as a bait for a scavenger fish in the Amazon, the piracatinga. We stopped it a little bit in Brazil and in Colombia, but now we have accounts in Peru and in Bolivia and in Ecuador as well. And also in some countries like Venezuela, people are killing dolphins and eating the dolphins. Also, we have a serious problem with the mercury because the gold mining and also natural sources of gold, of mercury that are exposed for the deforestation and just go into the water. Next. The main results of what we have done during the last year and a half is a long expedition. Next, please. It's a large expedition. We started in Lagartococha in Ecuador in August of the last year, and we surveyed more than 1,000 kilometers of rivers in 4 countries. Next. We were very happy and optimistic because we counted more than 1,366 dolphins during the survey we did in Ecuador, Colombia, Peru, and Brazil. And especially because we have a very high numbers of dolphins in the river Javari, that is a border between Brazil and Peru. And in the past, there were a lot of hunting of dolphins in that area. And also, we were happy to see a lot of dolphins in the Tarapoto Ramsar site in Colombia. However, next slide. When we start to do all the analysis of the population, we have done this expedition 5 times along the last 15 years, and we can see a reduction of the 80% of the population every year of the dolphins. So this is very shocking because we need to conserve some specific hotspot, aquatic hotspot in the Amazon in order we can protect these dolphins and other species. Next one. The next, please. One less. One less, please. No, in the other side, please. The other direction. Another one, please.
I'm sorry, this is the one that is, it's from
Okay.
River
Okay.
Lost.
Okay. Basically, in order to identify the most important areas for the protection of dolphins, we decided to install satellite tagging on the dolphins. So we have tagged 6 dolphins during the last year, 5 females and 1 male, in order to understand what are these important areas. We have a wonderful team of fishermen, local people, vets, and biologists, and we were very aware about the animal welfare during these procedures. No one of the dolphins remained more than 15 minutes out of the water, and we released in the same areas where we captured them. Next one. With all these captures as well, we started a health assessment program. Here you can see our vet, Jimena Valderrama, and the National Marine Mammal Foundation, that they were doing some scan ultrasounds. We identified 3 females that were pregnant, and we were collecting information about genetics, mercury pollution, blood characteristics, and some pathologies on the dolphins. Next one. When we did an analysis of the mercury, we did not only on dolphins, but also in the fish that local people are eating. And we found high concentrations of mercury in some of the dolphins and a lot of fish. And also we test the mercury in ourselves, and we have some mercury levels that are very worrying. Next one. And this is an example of Ceiba, one of the pregnant female we tagged the last October. And you can see all these dots show us that the Ramsar site, the Tarapoto Ramsar site, is very important for dolphins. And this is, in one side we have Colombia, and the other side we have Peru. So the dolphins don't understand about the political boundaries. So they are moving between Peru and Colombia without a problem, and we can identify what are the most important areas for the dolphins. And also we see that this pregnant female delivered the calves inside the Tarapoto Ramsar site. Next one. But we are not doing just scientific monitoring of the dolphins. We also are working with local communities trying to build solutions. The next one. One of the important things we have done is fishery agreements in Ecuador and in Colombia, and we have benefited more than 12,000 indigenous. And we are recovering already some of the species that were very endangered, like the giant pirarucu or the tambaqui. So now we are securing the food for the indigenous communities in the Amazon with these agreements between them. Next one. Also, we are restoring the flooded forest area. We are very focused on this, and during the last couple of years, we have planted more than 40,000 native trees involving 800 indigenous families. Why we did this? Because in the Amazon, you can find a lot of programs of people that are planting trees, but it's not very clear for what, and what is the proposal, and where they are doing. So we are doing with the people that they know very well which species, when to plant, and they are monitoring every tree for 3 years. And if one of them die, they replace. And from this restoration program, we started a very nice project, next one, that is called the Forest Library. And it's basically elderly people with the young indigenous trying to consolidate the traditional knowledge about the forest, but not only the forest as ecosystem, also specific trees. And we are combining local knowledge with scientific knowledge to understand the ecological relations of one single tree. For example, what will be the relation between one big tree and a manatee? Most people will say no one, but during the flooded pools, that tree will be covered partially by water, and the trunk will be covered for algae, that is the food for the manatee. So along the year, we can see a lot of ecological relations of a single tree with so many species. And this is one of our strategies to avoid deforestation. If people start to understand that one tree is an ecosystem itself. The next one, please. Also, we have a lot of conflicts between fishermen and the dolphins on the past, but we were seeing that the fisheries were collapsing, and we start to train fishermen and local guides to do good dolphin washing practices. Now there are more than 100 people during the last year that have been trained in the Amazon in this activity, and the dolphin became in the main tourist attraction in some areas like the Tarapoto. Next one. But we are not working only with dolphins. Also, we are working with orphan manatees calves. We have a lot of problems because people used to kill the adults and start to sell the calves in an illegal trade. So here is Moechi, and next one. We released Moechi 3 months ago, And we create a group of guardians, basically young women and men that are tracking this manatee every single day, protecting the manatee to avoid any trouble. And now this manatee is becoming also an attraction in the region. Next one. Also, we were escalating all this process in the Amazon and the aquatic ecosystem conservation at the political level. And we have this technical scientific meeting in Leticia. And then, was the Declaration of Belém, where there were 103 specific points talking about the needs and the main activities we need to undertake in the Amazon. And about the water, there are so many. The mercury, the dolphins, the forest, and the climate change is already there. So this is a very important political moment for the Amazon. Next one. And our next steps is to publish all these findings and also to produce a lot of educational materials we are already designing with the local people. Tomorrow, I'm going to a new expedition in the Casiquiari River, that is the connection between the Orinoco and the Amazon, and I will be there for 20 days. We are consolidating these fishery agreements and trying to understand what is the next steps in order to recover better all these fish stocks. And we are consolidating this restoration program, and we are trying to scale in a very big area, not only in the Ramsar side, but also in other areas of the country and in other countries. And basically, we are so worried for the mercury. So we are trying to promote a kind of program regarding the health of the people there, and also monitoring the mercury on dolphins and fish. And we are connecting this as well with a conservation management plan for river dolphins in South America. So basically, during this 1 year and a half, we have done a lot of things in the aquatic ecosystem in Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, and part of Brazil. And I think this is the basis to start a larger and ambitious program with National Geographic in a big scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fernando. So our next speaker is João Campos-Silva, who is studying habitat and migratory conditions for aquatic wildlife throughout the Amazon River Basin. Please, João.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, please.
Okay, thank you guys. Thank you very much for this invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. Congratulations, Fernando, for this amazing work. Well, I'm going to talk about some wetlands in Brazil as well, in the Amazon floodplains of Juruá River, which is a little bit close to Fernando's areas in terms of Amazonia. And the idea is to talk about community-based conservation. Please, can you pass the slide? When we think or when we talk about Amazonia, we start to think in this amazing biodiversity that we have. In fact, Amazonia is the home of one of the richest biodiversity on Earth, and it is a very important place to protect and to conserve the biodiversity. However, when we go deeper in this region, we see that beyond the huge biodiversity, please, could you pass? We also have impressive cultural diversity. We have many indigenous people and riverine communities that are living in a very deep relationship with nature. Could pass, please? So those people, so we have this huge biodiversity and also a huge cultural diversity. So one of the big questions that we have in all countries that share the Amazonian boundaries is how can we put together people and nature in the same package? I think that this is one of the biggest challenge that all of us have in this moment. And it's very imperative to find solutions that can integrate biodiversity protection and people well-being. Please pass. So those traditional people has been interacting with biodiversity and natural resource for millennia. So there are at least 12,000 years of coexistence where people have been interacting in a deep relationship with nature, but also, could you pass please, but also developing social technologies. So there are many leaders, environmental leaders and community leaders in Amazonia thinking and developing solutions for Amazonia conservation. Please pass. In this discussion, I would like to bring here some experience in Juruá River, which is a very, very important, emblematic place in Brazilian Amazonia. You can pass, where we can see a truly silent social revolution, because those riverine communities and indigenous people used to live in an almost slavery condition during the rubber exploitation, but then due to a very strong social organization process, those communities are leading very inspiring models of biodiversity protection and local development. Please pass. One of the most emblematic cases that we have in this place is the Arapaima management and the community-based management of giant Arapaima, and also the community-based management of freshwater turtles. Please pass. The model is a little bit similar. You can pass the slides. Basically, communities, local communities are empowered to protect their territory. So they build wood houses in front of the lakes and also in front of the beaches. And these places are protected along the entire year. You can pass. So the ecological impact of those models are very, very impressive. For example, in protected lakes, population size of giant Arapaima is more than 500 individuals compared to only 9 individuals in unprotected lakes. So basically, this protection of these environments ensure a very suitable habitat for reproduction and growth of these very, very emblematic fish. Can pass. And we have in the last 15 years of community protection an increasing in the Arapaima population higher than 600%. And this model works also very well outside formal protected areas, where we have the model implemented, started to implement the model 5 years ago, and the wild population increased almost 400%. You can pass. And the same pattern is observed for freshwater, the giant turtle. We have almost 60-fold more nests in community protected beaches. So basically, all the population, all the reproduction of turtles in this river is ensured by local protection of fluvial beaches. Next, please. And the protection of those beaches also benefits many other species, including aquatic mammals, other species of freshwater turtles, large catfishes, migratory birds, caimans, and even invertebrates. We have twofold more biomass of invertebrates in protected beaches compared with unprotected beaches. Next, please. And interesting that in protected beaches, we have like a poaching rate less than 2%. But in unprotected sites, the poaching is almost 99%. So basically, all turtles using the unprotected sites to reproduce are losing their eggs by humans. And also those models has been ensuring many social benefits. For example, in the case of the Arapaima, the women empowerment, it's a very important outcome. For the first time, women are making their own money, their own income, and they are participating of decision-making environments, which help to reduce the gender inequality, which is very strong in rural areas in Amazonia. Next, please. And the income from the Arapaima management also helps the local communities to invest in infrastructure in services. For example, we have much more educational opportunities inside those models. We have more production flow infrastructure, sanitation, healthcare, shop, communication, and electricity. Basically, those communities has a very important opportunity, social security, because they get the income once per year in a high volume of money. So they have like an agreement on how to use this collectively, and they can invest in better infrastructure in their communities. Next, please. So basically, we have a model that has a very strong income generation, infrastructure improvements, gender equity, social security, food security, territorial autonomy, increasing in self-esteem and sense of pride of local communities, cultural maintenance, and reduction of forest-urban migration. So basically, people participating in those models want to keep their families in the community because they have like a more positive hope in terms of future. You can pass, please. So we used to say that the Arapaima is the fish of change in Amazonia because it's a clear example of Amazonian social bioeconomy. It was created by traditional knowledge in alignment with science, but with local people leading the process. So basically, for many years, people try to find solutions from Amazonia from outside, trying to bring solutions that are not part of the Amazonian context, but many times the solutions are under the forest in the hands of local communities. Next, please. There is a phrase that I like a lot. Hatan Lau, he used to say that when people are poverty-stricken, desperate, and starving, they pass on their sufferings to the land. Next, please. But we believe that the opposite is also true. When people flourish from the land will be better protected and more diligently cared for. Next, please. So basically, what we need to think is that for many conservationists and projects and scientists, conservation is something at the end. It's like a project outcome, a project output. But we believe that conservation should be a way of life, is the pathway, you know. We believe that there's no future for Amazonia if this future do not come from the people that are living in the forest. So I think that for us, while researchers and journalists, it's very important to put those people in the spotlight and reinforce the message that the solution are in the hands of local people. Next. That's it. Thank you very much for all. Thank you very much for the invitation, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Wow. Okay, next, now we'll hear from Ruth Pillco, who is working with one of the region's most charismatic terrestrial species, the Andean bear, sorry. Ruth, please.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Detis, and good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for this opportunity. As João and Fernando was talking about, they mainly work in the lowland, but also the cloud forest is an important ecosystem from the Amazon. They play a key role in the water cycle as the diversity and array of orchids, ferns, mosses that cover the trees. All of them help they act like a sponge that capture the moisture, and then they release little by little, forming the streams, the river, and then they go to the Amazon River. So within this ecosystem, we have an iconic species. Next. That is called the Andean bear. Next. Ukuku or Ukumari. Those bears are the only bears in South America. Before, please. Well, they have facial markings, characteristic facial markings for every single individual. Okay, sorry. Okay, so those bears are distributed from Venezuela to Bolivia. They play a key role in the Andes as they are cultural icons, also called the ukukus. They are the semi-god between human and bear. So in the past, these characters used to travel to the glacier in the Ausangate and carry back blocks of ice that were sacred for the communities. However, last year I had the opportunity to join an expedition, and unfortunately there is not much glacier left. So with that, we are not only losing water, glacier, but also we are losing our cultural identity. Also, I don't know how many of you have heard about Paddington bear, but Paddington was, the Andean bear was the inspiration for the creation of Paddington bear, who traveled from Peru to London. Next, please. So those Andean bears are characterized by the facial markings, so that in many cases look like spectacles, no? That's why they are also called spectacle bears. They have a very good sense of smell. Play, please. They have a very good sense of smell, and they're very playful creatures. They're very smart animals. No, they are solitary species. So if we see 2 or 3 individuals, it's because it's the mom and the cubs. So the Andean bears are species that are vulnerable, mainly because habitat reduction and human-bear conflict. Next, please. Next. Okay, so where we are located? We are located in the southeast of Peru, at the entrance of Manu National Park, one of the most biodiverse places, exactly in Waiquecha Biological Station, in middle of the cloud forest. Next. So Andean bears are very shy animals, are very difficult to see. However, we know that they are there because they left these markings like a scratch. So it's the way how we know they are in the area. However, if we want to know more about how many bears we have in the area, how is the dive pattern and other questions, we need to do like transects. So next, please. So in order to do that, we develop expedition that lasts 15 days, many of them. And we were doing this expedition from the very high, from the grassland, from 4,000 meters of elevation down to the lowland, 200 meters of elevation. So for this expedition, we took all our equipment, food, everything, and we placed camera traps every 50 meters of elevation. Next. So this transect pass across different community lands, also biological stations, and conservation concessions and private conservation areas. So our transect is about 32 kilometers, and we place these camera traps every 50 meters of elevation. Next. And thanks to these camera traps that have been about a year in the forest, no, we were able to identify about 40 bear individuals. No, all of them different by the facial marking. So all these expeditions were challenged. We had to do that every 2 months because as any equipment, they tend to break very easy, especially on this harsh environment where it will be very hot during the daytime and could be very cold during nighttime. But also because the bears, no, as they're playful, most of the time they play with the cameras, they move the cameras, and many times chew the cameras. Next. So with the camera traps, we kind of know how the bears are using the different habitats across the elevational gradients, but also we want to know more about the diet pattern, know what they are eating across the year, across the season, and across the gradient. So as I said at the beginning, it's very hard to see Andean bears, so even hard to see what they are eating. So a way to learn what they are eating is about studying bear poo, bear scat. But imagine being in the forest, in the grassland, in the cloud forest, find bear scat will be super hard. So for that, we have a special college called Ukuku. We adopt Ukuku from a shelter in Cusco, and we train her to help us to find bear poo. And thanks to Ukuku and the team, we were able to find over 200 bear scat, and now we are in the process of analyzing them. Next. So we learned that bears are very messy eaters, so it's easy to know what bears have been eating. So the main food for them is the bromeliads. They are part of the pineapple family, and what they eat is just the fleshy bottom of the leaves. So bears are mostly herbivorous, omnivorous, like 80%, and from these, 80% of their diet are these bromeliads. It's like the rice and the potato for the Peruvians. They always have the bromeliads, and then they enrich with protein, like animal protein, other source of fruit and plants. Next. Next. So here we can see how the bear poo looks like. So in the left you can see like the bear poo, and you can still see the fruits, the berries. No, as they are carnivores, they don't digest very well the fruit. And somehow this is important because in this way they help in the seed dispersal of many tree species. So across the distribution, we know they disperse over 150 different species of trees. So in the right, you can see like the seedlings coming out from the bear poo. So they play a key role on the regeneration of the forest. But also, as they are big mammals, when they are looking for food on the trees, they tend to break the branches, and thus make gaps, and the gaps allow the light to get into the understory and wake up many seeds that they are sleeping. So they help in the diversity of the forest. Next. So we are not only, next, a video. Okay. Okay, so what we are also been doing is we want to know in more detail how the bear patterns. So we've been capturing bears in order to place satellite collars. So we have a special team like from vets and specialists, no? And thanks to these bear collars, we were able to know how the bears are using the different habitat, no? So as you can see in the video, they have like their houses where they spend a lot of time, and sometimes they move to different places to find food. But also thanks to the Nat Geo Critter Cam, we were able to place this device and then be able to see from the perspective of the bear. No? Here you can see how the bear is climbing the tree and is foraging in bromeliads. No? And they very skillful animals. No? They can go very high on the tree in order to find their food. Next. So we are not only doing research a very important part of our program, but also with information that we are gathering from the diet monitoring. We are working with local communities from the highest part of Manu National Park, where we are doing reforestation projects. Over the last 2 years, we planted about 200,000 trees. No, many of them are food for the bears. But the most important is because they are also will be important source of water for the next generations. Next. And we are also doing environmental education. Last year, we opened the Bear Interpretation Center on this part of Manu. It's a place, it's bilingual, Spanish and English, and it's a place where people can learn more about the bear, but also about the cloud forest and how we can help to conserve bears on the areas. So thanks to that, we've been bringing many students from local communities and also from different parts of Peru and international. Next. Next. So all this job wouldn't be possible with the help of the whole team. This is very diverse from local people from the nearest community. They are part of our team. They come with us to the expeditions. Also students from different universities from Peru, volunteers and interns, and national and international. And of course, Ukuku are our dogs, no? And all the people behind the scenes. So what is next for us? We want to learn more about Andean bears, but something we know is bears might help cloud forests to move. As climate change is happening, many tree species are also climbing. However, the tree line is not moving, but we know bears are moving freely from forest to grassland, so they might be helping many tree species to adapt to the new environment condition with climate change. And lastly, I will say, bears are forests, forest is water. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruth. This is fantastic, really amazing. So now we get to hear from an explorer with a very different perspective, having approached her work through the lens of camera. So welcome to National Geographic explorer, photographer, and also rainforest journalist of 2020, Florence Goupil. Florence, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this invitation, and thank you to the three of you presenting today. It's really an inspiring work doing by locals. And yes, I'm truly inspired. And well, today I would like to talk to you about collaboration between or scientific explorers or researchers and photojournalists or photographers like me. And next, please. So I chose for you this quote because I believe that as a photographer, we should learn to work with a team. We are used to work alone many times, right? But it is really nice to create a team of people, especially with local people working in the ground. And you as a photographer, together, you can build a very nice project, taking into account the different perspectives. Next, please. So in 2021, I was granted with the National Geographic Society and the Pulitzer Center to create one of my, for me, my most beloved projects in the Amazon, which is named Dialogues with Plants. And this project was made possible thanks to the collaboration with a Shipibo-Conibo indigenous and local scientific. He is a biologist, and he helped me to understand how these indigenous peoples in the Amazon were finding solutions against the pandemic using their own plants. So Samuel Cowper, this Shipibo-Conibo biologist, made a research about 180 species in his territory, from which 70% are used for medicinal purposes. And hearing this from a local and indigenous scientific helped me to be able to understand his world, taking into account his cosmovision, but also the scientific part, right? And I was, next please, I was really, really happy to be able to publish this story in different media and having a wider public with his help. So I wasn't obliged to find these informations in Occidental books, but with local people. And this is really amazing. And this is something that has continued inspiring my own processes. I don't know how to say it in English, I'm sorry. Next, please. And through the years, I have found even more collaboration, especially with local people, which actually led me to work on my most difficult project this year with another grant with Pulitzer Center. Next, please. And for this, it is really important that I show you these quotes from the anthropologist Jeremy Narby, who was actually 20 years ago asking himself how these indigenous people find these solutions, find these recipes in the Amazon, knowing that there is 80,000 superior plant species in the forest. So imagine the chances to find one only recipe. Next, please. So knowing the knowledge of indigenous people is still a mystery, and knowing that there is many scientists investigating about this, it was really inspiring and helped me to open my horizons and to find even more deep stories. And one of these stories is about the Piasi people, which are the isolated indigenous people from the Amazon. These isolated people are they chose to not have contact with Western or Occidental culture. And since 2015 or 16, between these years, a law in Peru was created so their human rights can be protected by law. But sadly, this year, many parliamentaries were trying to modify this law, which means that these people can be vulnerable and can be left without protection. Next, please. So within my research about how these people are using plants and how they connect with plants, I found myself facing an even bigger mysterious world in the Amazon, which is that these people that we know, that we see in so many pictures, are actually descendants of isolated people in the Amazon, which still are living there. To be more precise, Yolanda in this picture told me that she learned healing with plants thanks to conversations with isolated people. At first, I found myself a little confused because I didn't understand what this was. I mean, What is this meaning? Who is this invisible or isolated people? Next, please. But then, thanks to another collaboration with Indigenous Federation in the Amazon of Peru, I understood that this specific knowledge are transmitted. This plant's knowledge is transmitted from the isolated people who are visiting some indigenous communities. So they're actually having few contact, so they can transmit knowledge about plants and how they, for example, find and can difference between each plant. In the Amazon, many plants are in the same color, green, but isolated and indigenous people can have, for them, not everything is green, and they can difference these different plants, which is very, very interesting. And also, this meant for me that there is a process in the cognitive part of the brain that actually prove that this knowledge of plant can only be transmitted through their own specific language. So the fact that they still have contact with isolated people means that they are conserving their old language, and old language means that
Florence, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you couldn't hear that last part. We lost your audio somehow. Would you happen to have headphones that you could connect? Or maybe exit and rejoin with your panelist link?
Thank you so much. In the interim, while we warn more audio come back. Sorry, Florence, I still can't hear me. Okay, I'll send her a message. But while we wait for the audio to come back to Florence. Oh wait, try one more time. No, we still can't hear you. I don't know. I see you're off. Unfortunately, but I will we'll figure out some technical difficulties with Florence. Oh, okay. Apologies for that. Okay. Thank you so much. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but in the interest of time and while we wait for the audio to come back with Florence, how about we take it to a Q&A for the audience? I will check in through the chat and also some of the pre-submitted questions, and we'll see if we can get Florence's audio to come back. I will say that we will be sharing the presentation after this webinar, so you'll be able to see the beautiful images that Florence has curated. And we're also happy to facilitate any one-on-one conversations with Florence as well if the audio isn't able to return in our allotted time. But I'm going to take a look into our Q&A, and I will in the chat. Okay, I will actually start with one of our pre-submitted questions, and I'm going to start with our first speaker, which was Fernando. So Fernando, if you could give a little bit more detail onto the value of the fishery agreements that you chatted about earlier and why they are so important, not only from a scientific standpoint, but also from a community conservation standpoint.
Thank you, Dolly. Well, basically, now we have more people in the Amazon. 50 years ago, we have probably less than half of the people that actually they are in the Amazon. Now we have more than 44 millions of people. So all the resources have very heavily depleted, the fisheries in particular. And most of the indigenous communities rely on the fisheries for the food. So with the nets, large nets, and different ways to fish, all the fisheries have been collapsed. For years, the main focus of the fisheries were the catfish, the big catfish. But now there are very few catfish still in several areas of the Amazon. So we need to secure we need to help the food security for people. And they need to put some rules, and the rules have to be proposed for their self, not from the outside. It's probably the same that João was explaining. Areas with management and areas without the management. And the management have to be produced by the same people, the local people, in order they can respect the agreements. And the things we have done with several communities in Ecuador and in Colombia is to support the people to create these rules for the fisheries and what species they are going to ban for some years and how they are going to fish. And this is the only way to recover the fisheries, and they are important for food security, for the local economy, and also for the health of the whole ecosystems. We are working in one health approach. The things that are happening to the species are happening to the ecosystems and are happening to the people.
Thank you so much for that, Fernando. And I will send my second question is for João from the pre-submitted questions. João, I just wanted to, one, say thank you. Thank you to all the panelists for the work with the indigenous peoples and local communities. From your perspective, since your work really touches economic, social issues, health, and education, what do you see as the biggest challenge in bringing this work together for the benefit of the communities and the environment? So it's so many different elements that you have to bridge together and communicate with the local communities, their value add, to make sure that they are committed to protecting particularly the Arapaima, but other aquatic wildlife.
Well, thanks, Dolly, for the question. I think that there's no doubt that local people has the a powerful solution for Amazonia, but sometimes they have very big challenges because they are neglected by the government since a long time ago. So sometimes they need to handle some very hard logistics, lack of public policies, lack of support, financial support, to implement their solutions. So basically, I think we need to put their voices in the spotlight, but we need to carefully think how to bring public policies to prepare some suitable conditions where they can host their value chains, their access to health, their access to education. I think this is a remarkable challenge that we have here in Brazil and Amazonia.
Great. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's a question for Florence in the chat, and maybe we can address it and see if the audio is back so we can continue her presentation.
Yes, I just saw that come through. Thank you. I'm happy to read the question out to Florence. And the question is, did Florence expand on the isolated people's abilities to safeguard the knowledge about the medicines? She mentioned something about their prefrontal cortex being expanded by using certain languages. It's a really good question.
Yes, that question was on my presentation about. So if we can take from there, and I can explain that.
Yes, I'm sharing the screen again.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Well, we were cut, but what I was trying to say is that what I am going to present to you, it is a work of investigation and work in the field and many days of photographing the traces of the isolated people in the Amazon, and all thanks by the Pulitzer Center support, and most of all the FENAMAT, who is an indigenous federation in Madre de Dios, where many Peruvian anthropologists and indigenous collaborators are helping to protect isolated people, and also help me to to enter this territory. The territory where the isolated are located is in the Reserva Madre de Dios, and I was able to get to this community, Monte Salvado, who is a community that is right in the border with the isolated people. And it is also in the river Las Piedras, which is a very known river, because maybe you have seen these typical images from many NGOs taking photos from the air or with a drone of these isolated people completely naked, of course, without considering their own opinion about this. And yes, so this river is very famous about it, but the fact that I was working with locals and descendants of isolated people really helped me in my own process of not going there to use a drone and portray them without their consent, but instead trying to find other images like portraits or group photos and even videos that can explain why they are leaving traces. Next, please. So the government thinks that there are 25 indigenous communities living in voluntary isolation. So which means that there is at least 5,200 people. Next, please. If we can play 10 seconds of this audio. Thank you. So this is the sound. This is the sound of the brown-capped capucin. So it is also named El Mono Silbador in Peru. And it's a monkey that, of course, it looks like he's whistling. And the isolated people use this specific sound to recognize themselves in the forest and to pass on messages when it's safe to pass, right? And I was able to record this sound thanks to the descendants of these isolated people. I will talk more about them in the next. And I am showing you this audio because right now in Peru, as I mentioned before, the parliamentaries are trying to modify this law that is protecting their human rights by denying their existence. So these people are considered to be invisible, to non-exist. Next, please. So in one of my expeditions to this community near the isolated people territory, in one of the nights, I was able to actually hear them very close, at least at 10 meters from the safe home I was staying. And the only fact that they passed so close to the house, and I could hear their conversation and their steps and also their singing, made me shake in a way that I thought I was sick with fever, but it was not the case. You know, in the Amazon is 30 degrees at least, and even in the night it's really warm, and it was impossible that I was feeling this, but something happened, something maybe scientific, a reaction within my own body that I could prove that that made me shake. So I would like you to hear what I heard that night. Can you put some audio here, please? Thank you. So this is the sound of a bird, specific in the Amazon, that only sings during the day. So this sound at night can only be a sound interpreted by isolated people, trying to pass a message, as I said. So which means that, or they can enter the community of these indigenous contacted people where I was, or that can mean that they will cross the river again in safety, right? And I wanted to record this sound because it is important to educate not only Peruvian people, but many other people around the world about their existence. Because in the Amazon, we are not only protecting animals, trees, biodiversity, but we also need to protect these people. Next, please. So this is one of the Indigenous Federation FENAMAT rangers, and his work here is to protect the community from confrontations with the isolated people. Early in this conversation, I said that sometimes they meet and they can transmit knowledge about the use of plants and knowledge about how to chase, how to imitate sound of birds or monkeys. But the problem is that there is so many concessions trying to be approved by the Peruvian government within these reserves that are specifically created to protect the isolated people. And what is happening? The isolated people are getting attacked from illegal loggers, invaders, and many other people that can be armed. So today, for the isolated, everyone that is wearing clothes can be confused with an illegal logger. And this is becoming more and more dangerous for everyone's lives. Next, please. So this is where I wanted to be even more specific about the danger, because Nilo Vargas, who is a young man he's 27, when he was only 16, he was attacked by the isolated people, and this changed completely his life. So Nilo lived in this specific community where I was, and he was a normal indigenous boy running everywhere and trying to learn how to hunt, but he didn't obey to the specific trace that the isolated people left in the forest, and he passed these traces or signs. He passed them, and when he passed the third one, he received an arrow that caught his belly. And you can see the small hole there. That's where the arrow entered, and I would like to show you what the arrow is. So next, please. This is the sign that the isolated people are living today in the trails in the Amazon. This can mean many things. This can mean you shouldn't pass because one of the women are having birth, or you cannot pass because we are hunting. But the indigenous people that have contact also need to hunt because they all depend on hunting. So sometimes they need to pass on these marks. But this is where things get even more complicated and violent. Next, please. So I will show you really quick this video.
Ahora sí. Este es para, así se encaja este paca. Es para, así se amarra, así le amarran los contactados. Este es de, lo que utiliza son cepico. Ellos, todos los hermanos contactados, eso lo utilizan.
Maybe you can step ahead
su
like
herramienta
10
de
seconds.
Ellos pueden ser como son maestros haciendo este hilo, así le amarran, y estos palos son flexibles. Un palo se llama espintano, y hasta acá llega, y todos estos son pisana ya. Este es para picar animales, así sachabacas, sajino, venado, ronzoco, con pica. Por eso estos no tienen así mira, no tienen pluma. Como va a ir abajo nomás, no arriba. Sí. Por eso tiene una bolita. Así, este es para animales lo que son de abajo. Chachabaca, así, y sajino, venado. Todos animales lo que son de abajo. Por eso casi no tiene una fuerza, tiene arco. Depende cada uno del tamaño lo que tiene el arco. De nosotros, los jeans, tenemos menos arcos. En cambio de ellos son grandes. Y por eso nosotros así por todos sitios, y taomano, diamante, y casi son iguales los flechas, para reconocemos son los machos.
Yes, great. So that's the arrow I wanted to show you. It's built in 3 different parts. So the first and second are united by this hilo, and there are 2 different woods. So one is more flexible, so which makes the arrow can fly like this, and the last part is made of bamboo, which can cut and actually can kill. So these confrontations are getting really often right now, and confrontations can end by people, the isolated people leaving some other traces when they run. And this is a skirt that a woman left. And when I wanted to photograph this skirt, I felt I had almost the same reaction when the night I heard them walking really close to the safe house I was staying, because this skirt had a specific smell which is not a bad smell, but it's a smell that is made of combining different types of plants. And the smell can be so strong that it can have a specific reaction, because plants can modify your state of consciousness, right, when taking the plant. But what happens when you smell the plant? Only the fact that it's smelling, these specific recipes, you can have a reaction. And I could hear one other testimony of one of the FENAMAT's leader saying that they actually, even if they are descendants from the isolated people, they actually have the same effects when they approach these isolated persons. Next, please. So this is Salomon. Salomon got his first contact in 1969 when he was only 18 years old. Now he's a wise man, a man that knows how to use the medicinal plants, and he's settled in a community, and he's a healer. He remembers his life before having contact, and he specifically told me to transmit that we should all consider respecting the isolated people choice to live in isolation, to respect their connection with nature, with plants, and stop extracting, and to protect the law, the Piazzi law, so there will not be concessions, and to stop these at least 47 projects of to extract oil in the region of Loreto. So I cannot go further. I hope I asked your question about this cognitive reaction with plants, because it exists. But as you can tell, this is a working in progress, and I hope to get even more help with other scientific and investigators so I can have even more information. And I would like to encourage you to create a team and work together with other people. And that will be all. This will be the last photo I will show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Florence, for beautiful presentation and stunning visuals. And thank you so much to Fernando, Ruth, João for your fantastic and dedicated scientific research. It is a true joy to work with you all and to really elevate the Perpetual Planet Amazon expedition. I know we are slightly over time, but I want to thank again all of the attendees for your thoughtful comments into the chat. There are a few more questions that were submitted. In the interest of time, I will relay those questions to our panelists via email, and then we'll have some follow-up opportunities. Again, this will be shared as a recording, and the slide decks will also be shared as part of a follow-up email to all of the registrants. So thank you all so much. I will drop my contact information into the chat as well, so that everyone has access to me. And if there are any reporters particularly who would like to have follow-up interviews or backgrounder calls with any of the panelists, please do reach out to me. Again, my name is Dolly Maya, and I'm with National Geographic Society. And I also want to thank, of course, our wonderful partners in this effort, the Pulitzer Center and the Rainforest Journalism Fund, for hosting such a fantastic webinar. Thank you so much. And I will pass it over to Deti for any closing remarks on her end as well.
I think we are it. I think we have been very spoiled with this fantastic finding research and also experience from our explorers. And I hope we have more to come. And then again, and Dolly, as you mentioned, for everyone, please do not hesitate to contact Dolly or us at the RGF. We'll share our email contacts in our email, so you are free to contact us and let us know, and we'll get you in touch with any of the speakers here who have really spent the time and then share with us. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you
so
guys.
much. Muchas gracias.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Hasta luego. Bye-bye.